Dustin Tibbetts with Passport to Wall Street, and today we're going to answer 5 particular questions that we get a lot about investing. So we're going to go through 5 of them and give you the answers for beginner investors here. The first one is, I get this one all the time. Dustin, investing seems really complicated. I'm interested, but how do I get started? And really the answer is, what is it that your goal is? Are you interested in the short-term trading? Are you interested in long-term investing? What's really the goal for you? Are you saving for retirement, something that's, in the midterm? Or do you just really like waking up every day and picking out stocks and things? So that's the first thing to say is, yes, it is complicated, but we can sort of eliminate a lot of that complication by having you just simply choose what it is that you want to focus on. If it's day trading, then we can get rid of all the other stuff and not have to worry about that. Question number 2, what type of investments are available to me and which should I choose? This is a good question because when you decide what you want to focus on, that sort of helps, right? So answering question number 1, if you were to say, I want to day trade, well, then we would limit it to something like stocks. We may limit it to futures. Maybe you like the Forex markets, but at least then we'd be able to hone in. If we're talking about, long-term strategies, then we can include options. We can still include futures. We can include currencies, stocks, you name it. It can be included in that mix. Now, as far as what investments are available to the average investor or just getting started, nowadays, pretty much everything. If you want to focus on individual stocks, that's the easiest to get started with. If you want to add in options, that's also something that's pretty easy to add to your account these days. But of course, anything is really available to you. If that's what you decide you want to invest in futures, you can do that as well. The third question I get a lot is it really risky to invest in stocks, like to pick out your own stocks? Like, what if I had like 5 stocks I'm interested in? Is it really, really that risky? And yeah, it can be, right? If you're going to be a stock picker here in the short term, it's a really, really complex sort of competitive market. So you definitely want to make sure that you're up for it, right? You got to be willing to do the research. You got to be willing to understand the technology that you're using. If it's a trading platform or maybe it's an app these days that you're using, you want to make sure that you understand that. And probably the biggest thing would be to say, you are not going to guess most of them correctly in the beginning. So is it risky to pick out individual stocks for a portfolio? Yeah, it can be, but be a little easier on yourself. It's going to be a little bit tough in the beginning. You'll eventually get the hang of it. Number 4, the question that I get a lot is why do people focus so much on managing risk in your portfolio, and how do I figure out how much risk I should take as an individual? So this one's really a very popular one because if you don't manage your risk, you will run out of money. When you start as a stock picker, a day trader, whatever it may be, you're not going to get most of them right. And so it's important that we determine how much risk you should take. Now, I always say take the stomach test, right? You take a portion of your portfolio, let's start with like 1/20th of your entire portfolio, and put that on your first trade. Now, that's a lot, right? That's actually a lot to get started, but how do you feel about that? Are you able to sleep at night? Are you concerned about every little movement in the stock? Or does 1/20th of your overall portfolio not bother you? Maybe that portfolio that you have, that amount of cash, is not a huge part of your overall net worth, and you could replace it if you needed to. So risk tolerance is one of the most important things you want to figure out. And not only that, how much risk you put on each individual trade. That's certainly something that you want to learn how to adjust along the way, both increasing it and decreasing it in times of sort of picking bad trades. We actually have some videos on that, so check that out as well. And the 5th question that I get a lot is, what's diversification? Like specifically, what does that mean? Everybody says you should diversify, but where and how? So I take the approach of you should diversify your portfolio across different types of investments. Maybe it's a S&P 500 investment, and maybe it's something like a gold investment, right? So you would have some S&P 500, you'd have some gold. Those two things are not necessarily 100% correlated all the time. And so if gold had a rough sort of string of trading weeks or days or whatever, the S&P 500 may have recovered and did well in the meantime. The other thing I would say is diversifying means diversify by your strategy. And we actually just did a great video on this, how to diversify by strategy. What that means is if you're going to buy stocks when something happens, then not only do you want to pick different types of stocks with that, but you also want to make sure that you sometimes buy at different points. You want to have multiple strategies for buying those stocks in particular. So I would say you diversify by your asset class or by your product, and then you also diversify by strategy as well. Well, I hope that helps you. A little bit longer one today. Just wanted to go over those questions. I get them all the time. Hope that helps you. Continue to watch. We enjoy it, and we'll talk to you soon.